So we can begin, right? In a minute.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our panel, Global Indigenous Futures. My name is Sanjeev Chatterjee. I'm the founder of Media for Change, and we are organizing the WIT Festival, which I wanted to tell you a little bit about. The WIT Festival this is our third edition. This is the third year that we are doing it. And we are focusing on locally embedded but a globally distributed program that is taking place here in Miami, where I'm speaking from the campus of the University of Miami. It's happening at University of San Francisco de Quito in Quito, Ecuador. It's happening at SENAC, Sao Paulo in Brazil, and Anand National University in Ahmedabad, India. I want to acknowledge my colleagues in these institutions. Ana Gambogi is in Sao Paulo, and Juan Pablo Viteri is in Quito. I also have Vijay Sekon, who's in the middle of their celebration of Indigenous life in India, in Ahmedabad, India, and he sends his regrets for not being able to join the panel today. The idea is for this particular virtual panel, is to basically provide a platform for Indigenous voices from these different countries, uh, and to connect them in terms of a vision for the future. And you will hear various perspectives, and I'm very excited about this. I want to introduce the moderator for today, Gisele Souza Nils, who is a PhD candidate and teaching assistant in the journalism department at Michigan State University, where she teaches environmental reporting and advocacy. Her research focuses on environmental communication, indigenous media, and participatory methods. Before joining MSU, she worked as a research assistant on an NSF-funded project developing sustainable energy solutions for off-grid communities. She holds a master's in communication and information from Rio Grande do Sul Federal University in Brazil, and brings 20 years of experience as an environmental journalist and communications expert, covering climate change and sustainable development in rural and forest communities. Welcome, Gisele. I'll leave it to you to introduce the others. And thank you for being here to moderate this important panel.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Olá, hola, hello. É uma honra estar aqui com nossos painelistas maravilhosos. It's an honor to be together with our wonderful panelists. Es un honor estar junto com nossos incríveis panelistas. Cada pessoa vai ter 10 minutos para falar, por cerca de 10 minutos no painel, e depois abriremos para perguntas. Cada um de ellos hablará por 10 minutos e depois tendremos tempos para perguntas del público. Everyone will have 10 minutes to speak, and we have a Q&A session after that. I'll be speaking in the language of each panelist with them, and I'm sure your captions is going to be able to help you with that. Nuestro primero panelista es Manari Ushigwa. Manari es un líder visionario y defensor de la protección de la Amazonía y los derechos indígenas. Su cultura es declarada Patrimonio Cultural de la UNESCO y Manari nos hablará sobre el futuro de los pueblos en la Amazonía ecuatoriana bajo el ejemplo de su pueblo, el Zapara Pueblo. Manari, bienvenido.
Kukicha
Zapara Nianuka Cuiteja Manari Ushiwa. Yo soy Zapara de Amazonía, mi nombre es Manari Ushiwa. Em, yo les voy a contar y proponer lo que estamos trabajando en nuestra cultura. Los záparas hemos visto dos futuros. Un futuro que nosotros como mundo zapara hemos cuidado a la naturaleza y la evolución hemos hecho conjuntamente con la selva. Y ahí aparece una forma de pensar de que en cualquier actividad que nosotros hagamos en la selva debe estar marcado para cuidar a la vida. Si no está así, nosotros no podemos ir contra la vida que está alrededor de nosotros. Entonces, por eso, nuestra selva tenemos intacto ahí, tenemos un bosque primario, agua limpia, aire limpia, tenemos muchos recursos naturales bien cuidados donde tienen que estar. ¿Por qué hemos hecho así? Porque nosotros, en nuestra proyección de nuestra existencia como cultura zápara, lo que hemos visto es que si movemos estos recursos, estamos yendo contra el sistema de vida que nosotros queremos cuidar. Entonces, por eso, respetamos todos estos recursos, porque ellos son parte de nuestra vida, ellos son parte de nuestra sabiduría, ellos son lo que nos enseñan cuál es para ver el futuro de la vida en general en planeta Tierra, y por eso nosotros cuidamos esta selva. Por otro lado, la otra civilización moderna, lo que se ha hecho es que alcanzó bastante en todo aspecto, en la ciencia, en la tecnología, pero se enfermó. Entonces, la respuesta de ese futuro que está enfermo, que está en problemas, nosotros tenemos un futuro en la selva para responder esas preocupaciones, para poder replantear, para que continuemos viviendo en este mundo. Entonces, para nosotros el trabajo que estamos haciendo es que mucha gente desde el mundo moderno nos visitan a la selva, nosotros enseñamos por qué no hemos tocado el bosque hasta ahora. Entonces, eh, ahí hemos contado muchas historias sobre nuestra existencia, pero hay uno de los historias que contamos es sobre el mundo de Makihauno. El Makihauno es el mundo de los sueños. Para nosotros esta sabiduría es una de las sabidurías que nos ayudó a entender cómo la selva está estructurado, cómo la vida en la selva está estructurado y con ellos cómo nos cuidamos mutuamente a través de nuestros sueños y así hemos propuesto una visión de la vida donde todos los conceptos que está afuera, como desarrollo sostenible, como un sistema económico, todo eso no encaja donde nosotros estamos viviendo. Entonces, y por esa razón hemos conectado con este futuro moderno para hablar con muchos científicos. Ellos lo que nos han dicho es que para seguir cuidando a la selva, lo que tenemos que hacer es una nueva manera de entender una economía, tal como hemos hecho, tal como hemos cuidado, tal como hemos pensado, y ahí tenemos que definir un concepto nuevo. Y eso es lo que se va a mantener la selva como hemos cuidado hasta ahora. Entonces, para mí, tenemos que hacer una reflexión. Yo he hablado como mundo zapara, pero ahora mi reflexión es que me gustaría hacer es como humanos en el mundo, porque ahora todos los humanos que vivimos aquí tenemos que pensar sobre historia de nuestro, siempre decimos nosotros, nuestro hogar no es la casa que hemos construido, sino nuestro hogar es todo el planeta Tierra que está en donde vivimos. Eso es nuestro hogar. Entonces, para cuidar ese hogar, tenemos que entrar en una energía que se llama Nukaki. Nukaki es número 1 en idioma Zapara. La energía de Nukaki dice que el mundo humano es uno, el agua es uno, el aire es uno, el bosque es uno, entonces, y la tierra es uno. Si, si conectamos con esa energía, ahí nosotros vamos a encontrar una respuesta donde nuestro centro de la vida, donde nuestro centro de sabiduría tiene que estar muy conectado por esta unidad que tenemos que hacer como humanos para entender todas las cosas que hemos hecho, que hemos equivocado, para rectificar y entender también nuestra forma de actuar en nuestra civilización. Entonces ahí es lo que vamos a encontrar nosotros desde la selva. Todas las plantas dicen que una sabiduría que tiene medicina, eso es la respuesta que tenemos que encontrar para cuidar nuestro hogar gigante. Entonces, lo que me gusta es que estas conferencias, estas formas de conversar, y los profesores, los científicos, los que piensan, los que quieren hacer una nueva filosofía, yo quiero que tenemos que basarnos, entender cómo los árboles, cómo la tierra y cómo nosotros como seres humanos estamos pensando, y ahí tenemos que encontrar un sueño que es que aparece desde la energía del viento, y esa energía es lo que nos va a suavizar nuestra tensión, nuestras preocupaciones, para encontrar una respuesta unidos como humanos y juntos con esta energía de Nukaki para salvar nuestra vida y para seguir viviendo y contando nueva historia como los humanos que hemos civilizado, y de esa civilización también tenemos que encontrar una respuesta donde nuestros niños, nuestros jóvenes, los niños que recién están naciendo, que disfruten también en este mundo para que ellos vean y sientan lo que nosotros hemos rectificado en nuestras acciones. Entonces, eso es lo que yo les puedo decir, pero me gustaría que cada uno de nosotros, no quiero, hablemos desde crítica nuestras posiciones o de lo que nosotros hemos hecho hasta ahora como humanos. Yo quiero que hablemos desde posición positiva, porque ahí vamos a generar una energía donde todos vamos a estar unidos como humanos para seguir contando esta nueva historia. Gracias, Isaac.
Muchísimas gracias, Manari. So, it was wonderful to hear Manari sharing with us the Sapara knowledge and wisdom about how we can heal this planet. And he was telling us that the answer for the Sapara people is in the jungle, it's in the forest. And we need to all get together as a planet to take care of this forest. Now we're going to hear Sudhir Horo talking to us about how his Munda community is preserving heritage while championing indigenous futures in South Asia. Welcome, Sudhir.
Thank you, Giselle. Just a slight correction, I suppose. I'll be speaking about the formation of a community of designers and artists from various tribes of India. So kindly allow me to do that. If I can start my presentation. Yeah, great. So Johar, Johar means greetings in my language, which is Mundari from the Munda community. Uh, it- it's quite heartening to see that the world is opening up to the existence and the importance of indigenous peoples. Uh, today's today's talk is one such manifestation. And as we people sitting here in India who are reading and looking around the world, we've been noticing certain things that has been going on the other side of the world, which is in many ways inspiring for us as well. So many people from various indigenous communities working in the area of art, design, science, technology, innovation, we can see young people forcing that. But the point is, around the world, when we look at how we get to be represented and picturized, is something that raises more questions than answers. And I'm indeed delighted that I have been invited to present what we here in India have been doing with a very young and motivated group of people from different tribal communities. So what I'll be speaking on is designing tribal futures in India, how Tribal Design Forum is leveraging the roles of art, design, and technology for social, cultural, and economic benefits to the tribal communities in India. Just as a global perspective of who these indigenous people are, we can see we have over 466 million indigenous people worldwide across 90 countries. We speak more than 4,000 languages, but in our consciousness, we are only aware of very limited of these languages. So indigenous peoples worldwide are recognized for the deep ancestral ties to land, distinct cultural traditions, and knowledge systems. The UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, UNDRIP, affirms their sovereignty, self-determination, and collective rights. Most nations formally recognize their land, governance, and identity, shaping policies that empower indigenous communities. However, India does not categorize its indigenous communities under this global framework. Instead, the scheduled tribe category is a constitutional affirmative action measure that does not acknowledge tribal sovereignty. Unlike indigenous policies elsewhere, the scheduled tribe status does not grant land rights, cultural protections, or self-governance. India is home to 705 scheduled tribes. These are just official numbers. There might be many more that constitute 8.6% of the population, over 104 million people. These communities
Pardon, Sudhi, I'm really sorry, but your presentation is not moving. It is stuck on this screen that is black. We can see that you have the other pages on your right-hand side, but we could not see it.
Could I just reshare it?
Absolutely.
Is it there, right? Okay,
Yes,
fantastic.
that's true. Thank you.
So as I was talking about the Indian perspective, we have more than 705 scheduled tribes constituting 8.6% of the population, which is over 104 million people. These communities hold invaluable cultural and ecological wisdom. However, their knowledge remains marginalized in mainstream academic, economic, and policy narratives. So as I'd like to share some of the pictures of these communities so that you get an idea of the diversity of these communities that exist in India. In the north, we have the Apatanis. Northeast India, we have the Konyaks. Northern India, Brokpas. India, Baigas. Western part of India, the Rathwa community. Eastern, Bonda. And in the eastern side, we have the Santhals, the Mundas, and I belong to this community, the Munda community, and this is where I am located currently speaking to all of you. So coming back to the plight of the tribal communities in India, we form a significant part of India's population, yet 45.5% of rural tribals live below the poverty line compared to 25.7% of the general population. Economic policies have largely failed to uplift these communities in a way that respects their traditional knowledge and way of life. Education remains a major challenge. The literacy rate among tribals is 59%, far below the national average. Only 6.7% make it to higher education, limiting access to stable, well-paying jobs. Most are confined to informal, low-wage labor. Tribal communities have faced disproportionate displacement. Over 50% of people displaced by development projects since independence have been tribals. While the Forest Rights Act legally recognizes the traditional land rights, implementation remains poor. Tribal communities suffer from the highest malnutrition rates in India. Healthcare is severely lacking. 80% of tribal areas lack basic medical infrastructure. Even access to clean drinking water remains a challenge for 60% of tribal households. We can see and sense a gradual demise of tribal epistemologies in India. Tribal knowledge systems are in decline. Indigenous ways of knowing are dismissed as unscientific. Younger generations migrating to cities further weaken oral traditions. Policy gaps and ecological threats are accelerating this loss. Tribal knowledge is often misrepresented or exploited. Indigenous experts are rarely consulted in policy making. Corporations engage in biopiracy and cultural appropriation without compensation. Tokenism prevails over true inclusion. India lacks a strong legal framework to protect tribal intellectual property and data sovereignty. Ethical partnerships and community-led documentation are essential today. The Tribal Design Forum, our community, is working towards advocacy for legal instruments that ensure ownership, profit sharing, and cultural preservation. Mainstream development displaces tribal communities and disrupts their cultural ties. Economic models promote individual gain over community well-being, leading to an identity crisis among urban tribal youth. This calls for alternative models rooted in indigenous wisdom. And as our community members say, we feel that the tribes are in transition today in India. Tribal communities are on a crossroads with generations from the past and the present coming together to own their future. Change, the only constant in life, has brought dynamic waves of ebb and flow in the tribal communities. Much has been lost in the tide of time, but now narratives are changing. The once docile hibernating tribes are slowly expanding their wings to take their flight. Young and old, city folks and village folks, all full of aspirations and creative expressions, are coming together to not only understand and acknowledge, but also embrace their tribal heritage. The future abounds with expressing a contemporary idea of who and what is a tribal in India, with the tribes themselves exercising the right to self-determination. Metamorphosis is ongoing among the tribals, and the tribes are transitioning to fly, not on borrowed identities, but their own. And Tribal Design Forum is riding this wave of a motivated, brave, articulate, creative, and innovative generation of young tribals. And this is what the Tribal Design Forum realized, that we had been living in a society with fragmented talent in art and design. Tribal designers and artists work in isolation with no national network or database. The Tribal Design Forum has built the first of its kind ecosystem to connect and empower tribal creative professionals, giving them access to opportunities, exposure, and financial support. As I'd like to highlight, Tribal Design Forum is a community of tribal designers and creative professionals who come together to highlight the role of art, design, and technology for the benefit of our own communities in India. And as you could see from some of the portfolio of the people coming from various tribes working across sectors, this is just some of the kinds of products that people have been working with their communities in the corner, completely forgotten and underappreciated. So we have entrepreneurs, we have people working in the food sector, in the gaming or art, or animation sector. So far, we have an exciting and capable network of designers, all coming from various tribal communities, who can collectively service any of the design projects, but more importantly, narrate the story of their own communities to the larger audience. We have people coming from various different sectors of design. So coming back to the importance of art, design, and culture in tribal growth, we as young people, we feel that tribal art and design hold immense cultural and market potential. The Tribal Design Forum is documenting successful tribal-led initiatives, bridging indigenous creativity with sustainable economic models, and mainstreaming tribal knowledge in the creative industry. For the past 3 years, Tribal Design Forum every week hosts knowledge sharing sessions featuring indigenous leaders from India and beyond. We realized that there was hardly any information and case studies existing in the mainstream or the academic system here in India. So we did not have enough reference. And this is how we decided to create our own pool of reference from people around the world. And in fact, we have gone more than 136 weeks. We have tapped and reached out to very collaborative people who have graciously given us their time. As you can see, some of the sectors and the experts that we have had the good fortune of inviting and having a conversation, and also to learn their approach of how they are working with their communities in their areas, which either we might get inspired or perhaps we might collaborate on with them sometime in the future. So this is what is our library. This is what is our online university, which has been running for the past 3 years, every week, open to all and freely accessible. In the process, we have also been able to reconnect urban tribals to their roots. As you can see, we are also looking at how to decolonize narratives through storytelling. Through lots of crowdsourcing and visual media contests in photography, illustration, and art, Tribal Design Forum ensures tribal identities are represented authentically, curated by indigenous juries from India and overseas. This idea of ours challenges misrepresentation and mainstream stereotypes. At the other side, we also organize city meetups and open studios. The TDF City Meetup provides safe spaces for tribal youth to network, share ideas, and explore creative careers, while open studios showcase tribal designers' work, fostering collaboration between tribal artists, designers, and artisans. We also organize boot camps. Boot camps are intensive learning experiences fostering collaboration. Tribal Futures Festival is another such important thing that the Tribal Design Forum established and started in India. During the month of August, when the world celebrates Indigenous Peoples Day, which is one day of a very token-based event that gets organized around the country, we decided to organize a month-long celebration of contemporary tribal imagination, which we thought would be something that gets curated, organized, managed by people from tribal communities themselves, so that we can let the world know how the world needs to look at us now that we are living in these current times. We've also started an academy where we help people to undertake design, entrepreneurship, and sustainability courses, but all of these approach the tribal communities' perspectives. Workshops on intellectual property and GI tags empower tribal communities to safeguard their heritage and economic rights. We also offer online career guidance and scholarships to young aspiring youth. Till now, we have been able to offer almost 20,000 scholarships for education and digital tools. We also prepare the youth for state government jobs and entrepreneurship. So what Tribal Design Forum aspires to do here in India is we wish that the tribal communities can exercise and have a space for their own agency. We feel that the future belongs to indigenous voices. Tribal Design Forum envisions an ecosystem where tribal designers, artists, and professionals thrive, where knowledge, sovereignty, and self-representation drive global design and innovation. We think that we cannot create a future if we cannot imagine it. And when we currently in India have a young, motivated, creative, and imaginative group of people, how can we leverage their skills to not just look at art, design, and technology for the benefit of themselves, but also for their communities and to connect with a larger global world? We at Tribal Design Forum in India, we are ready to engage with the world. Thank you for giving us this space and listening to you listening to me. Thank you, organizers. I'll be looking for questions and the session that follows. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sudhir. It was wonderful to hear how community tribal designers are using art and technology to reclaim the right to properly represent themselves and to counter the loss of tribal knowledge in Asia. And also, thank you for kindly translate the presentation for the 3 languages of this panel. This is one of the many expressions of relative solidarities that we see in all indigenous people in the world. I'm going to switch my language now to Portuguese so I can introduce you to Edson. Edson Caiapó Mebengocré é um historiador, escritor, ativista dedicado aos direitos indígenas e à proteção do meio ambiente e curador do Museu de Arte Moderna de São Paulo. Edson vai nos falar sobre a crise de projeto civilizatório em que nós vivemos e a necessidade de um diálogo entre saberes indígenas e não indígenas. O vídeo que o Edson ia nos mostrar está pronto? Sohini, I'm not sure if the video is ready to show or if Edson is talking.
I guess Edson is talking. 1 second. I'll just give me.
Edson, o vídeo não deu certo, então você tem 10 minutos para conversar com a gente, tudo bem?
There is a video that Anna sent. I'll share my screen. Just give me a moment. Yeah.
Oh, ok. Não, deu certo, Edson. O vídeo vai mostrar. I'm so sorry, folks. We are navigating a little bit of technology here. Desculpa a todos, a gente está navegando a tecnologia aqui.
Can you see my screen?
Tá ok. Tudo bem.
Yes, we can. I'm just not sure you were sharing the audio, Sohini.
Can you repeat yourself?
The audio is not coming through.
It's not coming through? Okay, just give me a minute. Yeah. I'm going to reshare it. Let me know if the sound is coming with a thumbs up.
Olá, bom dia a todos e todas. Eu estou muito feliz, por estar participando desse evento, pelo convite para participar. de um debate imprescindível, de um debate muito importante aí colocado para nós como desafio, né? Pensar no futuro possível. E pensar no futuro possível pressupõe então pensarmos que o futuro, que o presente, né, na verdade o presente é desafiador, né? Nós estamos aqui num tempo difícil, né, um tempo de emergência climática, e os problemas todos que estão colocados aí, que são crises, né, e eu penso que não há dúvida para pensarmos na existência de crise econômica, crise de saúde, né, crise sanitária, crise de valores morais, éticos e uma crise climática, né, que tem a ver com esse aquecimento. E toda essa problemática, ela tem uma ligação, né, no meu modo de ver, com um projeto de progresso que a humanidade pensou, organizou, desenhou muito bem ali, especialmente no século XVIII. Obviamente que antes do século XVIII isso já vinha sendo projetado, mas os iluministas conseguiram então projetar a ideia de que nós seres humanos somos racionais. Eu não tenho dúvida de que nós somos, né? Agora me parece que o grande problema desse pensamento é dizer que superiores a todas as outras formas de vida, né? E mais que isso, os iluministas diziam que nós não somos natureza, que nós devemos nos apartar da natureza porque ela é hostil, devemos transformar a natureza em produtos e bem-estar, né, para a humanidade e produzir um progresso. Então, a nossa racionalidade e a nossa relação com a natureza pressupõe pensar num progresso permanente, né, um progresso infinito e um bem-estar que viria para todos. Então, diante dessa forma de pensar, diante dessa concepção, o ser humano promoveu guerra à terra pela água, pelo solo, pelo subsolo, pelo ar, uma guerra generalizada. E nós chegamos aqui então no dia 21 de agosto de 2025 com uma promessa não cumprida, né, que é a promessa da igualdade, a promessa da liberdade, da fraternidade, né, o bem-estar para a humanidade. O que nós vemos nesse momento é angústia. As pessoas com medo de morrer, né, o aquecimento global, as crises, a pandemia, né, e a ameaça de outras pandemias piores até virem nos assolar, de maneira que o projeto de progresso colocado pelos iluministas e pela humanidade definitivamente deu errado, né? Então é momento de nós refletirmos, pararmos um pouco as nossas ações, refletirmos sobre todo esse caminho que a humanidade traçou, né, durante séculos, e pensarmos numa outra coisa que eu aprendi com os povos indígenas, enquanto indígena do povo Mebengocré. Eu aprendi que o envolvimento é uma boa prática, sabe? É o envolvimento, o respeito, o envolvimento nosso, né, de nós, cada um de nós com os outros, mas o nosso envolvimento com as árvores, com os animais, com os rios, com as fontes de água, com o ar, com as montanhas, com tudo que nos envolve, sabe? Nos pensarmos como natureza, como pertencentes à natureza, respeitarmos a vida em todas as suas dimensões, todas as formas de vida, e respeitarmos as diversidades socioculturais, sabe? Respeitarmos as diversidades sociolinguísticas. O Brasil, por exemplo, é um país tão grande, tão bonito, tão diverso. São mais de 300 povos diferentes e mais de 275 línguas diferentes faladas. E esses povos, essa diversidade toda de povos, historicamente tem sofrido uma brutal violência, né? Tem passado por um processo de genocídio, de epistemicídio, de ecocídio, né? Falava-se no final do século XIX que os nossos povos não continuariam a sua estada na Terra, né? Não conseguiriam permanecer na Terra, porque nós não conseguiríamos acompanhar o progresso nacional, era isso que diziam, né? E diziam até que o último indígena viveria até o ano 2000, né? Então nós estamos aqui, sempre estivemos e sempre estaremos. Todas as profecias que falaram da extinção dos nossos povos deram errado. E nós estamos aqui, nesse momento, exatamente com o desejo de dar um recado muito, muito tranquilo para a sociedade brasileira e para a comunidade mundial, que é o aviso de que nós temos interesse em dialogar para reconstruir tudo que foi destruído em nome do progresso. Nós temos interesse em participar dos diálogos com a sociedade. Nós temos interesse em que a sociedade reconheça que nós somos povos do presente e não do passado, e não congelados no passado. Nós somos povos de uma diversidade sociolinguística e cosmológica muito grande, né? Nós queremos que os nossos direitos sejam respeitados e que nós possamos ser respeitados como seres humanos. E eu tenho absoluta certeza que a educação, né, a educação escolar, a educação não escolar, são fatores fundamentais para que haja uma reversão na forma de pensar, sabe? Essa forma de pensar o ser humano se pensando enquanto superior a todas as formas de vida, e essa forma em que a sociedade brasileira hegemônica trata os povos indígenas, sabe? É um momento de repensarmos tudo isso, é o momento então de nós fazermos um esforço muito grande para, por exemplo, transformar o rio Tietê num rio limpo, um rio límpido, um rio onde as pessoas possam nadar, possam tomar banho, possam pescar. O rio Pinheiros, esses rios todos poluídos pelo Brasil, tem que ter, sabe, as pessoas têm que ter vontade de fazer uma reversão, as pessoas têm que achar as outras interessantes, as pessoas têm que respeitar as várias formas de pensar, de conceber o mundo, de falar, de maneira que é o momento, sabe, nós estamos assim numa encruzilhada e esse é o momento de nós fazermos esse movimento de volta. Porque se a humanidade insistir nesse processo, nesse projeto de progresso, sabe, desse progresso irracional que quer derrubar as florestas, que quer transformar a floresta em monoculturas, sabe, que quer poluir os rios e explorar metais, ouro e metais preciosos dentro do rio, né, explorar petróleo dentro da floresta amazônica, obviamente que o futuro, né, ele é previsível facilmente, né? O futuro vai ser a extinção de muita
Oh, I think we lost the audio on this last part. It was it at the end?
I think it was yeah, it stopped there.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you, Edson, for kindly recording the video. We know that it helps with technology and a little bit of an unstable connection. So Edson reminds us that the anguish of our times is a product of the development project that we've been seeing in the last centuries that was very harmful to nature and to indigenous people. And he also brings us the Mbengo Cree wisdom of profound respect to the trees, to the water, to animals, and the people who inhabit our planet. As Sudhir and Manari before him, he points out that how education that bridges indigenous knowledge and non-indigenous knowledge is a key that will take us to a better future. Thank you so much, Edson. We're also going to hear from Amelia Winger-Berskin. She's an award-winning artist from the Seneca Cayuga Nation, and she's a technologist exploring how indigenous innovation shapes the digital age, and will tell us a little bit about it. Welcome, Amelia.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be with you and the other panelists here at the With Border Festival. My name is Amelia Winger-Berskin, and I am the Banks Preeminence Chair of Artificial Intelligence and the Arts at the University of Florida at the Digital Worlds Institute. I'm the director of the UF AI Climate Justice Lab, and I am the founder of Wampum Codes, a podcast and an ethical framework for AI and software development based on the principles understood by my people, the Haudenosaunee, Seneca Cayuga Nation of Oklahoma, Deer Clan. I'm sorry, I'm getting some other sound feedback, and I was wondering if someone was trying to ask me something.
I don't think so. You can keep going.
Okay, great, thank you. So I'm going to share my screen and share with you a little bit of the work that I have created. I hope everyone can see that well enough. Thank you so much. So I'm an artist and a technologist, and I started making a living as an artist working with emerging media in 1998 and working with artificial intelligence in 2006. Over the last 10 years, I've been surprised and delighted to be invited to share my art in film spaces such as Tribeca Interactive or the Sundance New Frontiers program. I normally show my work at museums, but now I'm also been invited, especially by Sanjeev and others, to show my work at film festivals and in movie theaters across the world, which is very fun. My art is generally video art, immersive media, virtual reality, extended media, film, sound, and performance art. I'm going to read a brief statement about my work, and I'm show you some examples. This is a project that I worked on called Fancy Dance. It's a feature-length film, and it streams on Apple. It was directed and produced by Erica Tremblay, who's from the same tribal nation as me. She invited me to contribute to her remarkable film. I created the virtual reality experience featured in the movie. One scene includes a futuristic cornfield where the character of Roki plays in VR. In this scene, Lily Gladstone, the actress, her character Jax, receives bad news via a phone call, while Roki is in VR. Later, there's a sequence where Roki runs through the cornfield with red and blue police flashing lights. This VR pastel version is representing a sky world, a foreshadowing to the film's climax, which I won't spoil for you. I highly recommend seeing the film. It's a groundbreaking film. It's the first feature film to be shot in our own tribal reservation and in our Cayuga language. Erica Tremblay's direction is outstanding, and the performances of Lily Gladstone and the rest of the cast are really lovely. So please, I highly recommend supporting and watching this film. And when I'm not working with feature films, I make art in a museum, but I largely use screen-based work. Sometimes that screen is very small and strapped to your head in VR, and sometimes that screen is very large. And as you can see in this image at the Next Museum in Amsterdam, that woman is about a little taller than me, I'm pretty short, but that's how large that screen is. And this is a work called Midnight and to Body. Collaborating on Fancy Dance inspired me to create a traditional film that we call in VR an experimental film, which I submitted to various film festivals. The short film has been successfully touring for the last year and premiered at Imaginative, being featured at Maori Land, a wonderful Indigenous film festival, Dead Center Film Festival, which supports Indigenous filmmakers, and it's currently on display at the Wexner Center for the Arts, and it's part of the Caddis collection. I'm going to send you, I'm going to show a little clip of it at the end of my talk, but I will read you a little bit about what the film is about. Who determines the protocols for looking at the sky? Like moss and fungi, animals and plants, and indeed most living beings, the sky does not have borders. It moves and is part of a larger system that includes the moon, the sun, and the stars. I was inspired to make this piece when I heard a politician lay claim to a universal ethics and protocol for looking at the sky. This led me to contemplate various notions of owning the sky, the laws that treat airspace as territory or as an extension of the land, the regulations governing what kind of frequencies can emit across the open air, the geographic information systems whose satellites we can see if the night is clear enough. Ultimately, though, it is my ancestors that I hope to connect to through these tools, old and new. A note about the artificial intelligence that I use in this film. My short film uses image in painting, a technique from the field of AI that is historically used to reconstruct missing regions in an image, object removal and image restoration. I use this technique subversively. By in painting, I instead erased the prominent human architecture in the photos I took, reminding us that the backward-looking prediction erases a possible future. The short film also uses digital image interpolation. When an image is resized or distorted from one pixel grid to another, this gives the film a liquid morphing process, which is hypnotic and out of time. The algorithms assist the animations. The images are photographs that I took of the landscape as I was driving across the country moving to Florida. They're not AI generated. I shot it, with a normal camera, pushing the button with my finger. I have a short video essay which has text on the side if you need a visual audio representation, and I'll use my voice. Thank you so much. I'll show you the clip now. Do let me know if for any reason you cannot hear it.
You are not sharing the audio with us.
I use new kinds of technology to tell new kinds of stories. I'm interested in science storytelling for environmental futures and how homelessness intersects with climate justice. Climate change could force up to 216 million people to migrate within their own countries by 2050, according to the World Economic Forum. I stand with those who defy categorization. We're prototyping futures in places that do not exist, for the people they will one day be, for the liquid, the hybrid, the cyber, and the unreal. Thank you so much for having me today. And this is how I say thank you in my language, Nyawe. And those are some links in case you are interested in continuing to have the conversation continue.
Thank you so much, Amelia. I would also like to be Sky if it's this beautiful, like how you presented to us. So Amelia also showed us how Indigenous art is opening pathways to a future that includes Indigenous contemporary narratives that are created and presented on Indigenous terms, which I think it's a little bit of the spirit of this talk that we are having now. You're going to see me at this part of the Q&A speaking on the three languages. So when I'm speak, maybe you don't need to pay attention to the translation, because it's going to be very hard to be changing the three of them all the time. Eu vou falar nessa parte do Q&A nas três línguas, para ficar mais fácil para todos os painelistas. Então, a parte da tradução automática do que eu estou falando não vai ficar tão boa. Yo voy a hablar en las tres lenguas, Manari. So, para los panelistas, estoy diciendo a las personas que no tengan mucha atención para la traducción automática. We have a Q&A session now. I will encourage everybody that is listening and watching this wonderful panel that we are having to post your questions. And I'm going to start with one of my own for them while you gear up your questions. Nós temos uma sessão de perguntas e respostas agora. Eu vou começar com uma pergunta para todos os painelistas, enquanto as pessoas que estão nos assistindo enviam as suas perguntas. Tenemos una sesión de preguntas y respuestas de los panelistas ahora y yo voy a empezar con una cuestión para todos los panelistas. We saw a lot of connection between Indigenous knowledge, education, art, and culture, and I would like to ask each one of our panelists, how is the reception of the art and the education initiatives that you are spearheading? Minha pergunta para os painelistas, todos falaram sobre arte e educação como um caminho para um futuro mais harmônico entre indígenas e não indígenas, e a minha pergunta é como tem sido a receptividade do público. Entonces, mi pregunta es, todos están hablando, todos nuestros panelistas hablaron sobre educación y sobre arte como una perspectiva para un futuro que es mejor para todos, indígenas y no indígenas. Y mi pregunta para todos es cómo el público está interagiendo, cómo es la interacción del público con la arte, la cultura y la educación que ustedes están promoviendo en sus pueblos. I'm not sure who will want to start answering. ¿Quién gustaría de empezar? ¿Quién gustaría de comenzar?
Posso começar.
Go on. Vai, Edson.
Posso seguir? Olha, eu vou falar da experiência aqui no Brasil, né? Eu tenho circulado muito nos espaços educativos, né? Tanto em escola quanto nos espaços de...
Edson, o teu som tá falhando muito, Edson.
E eu confesso assim que estou otimista em relação ao que está ocorrendo, sabe? Obviamente que nós sempre temos a tendência de achar que essa... Mas está ocorrendo, né? Aqui... hoje ela pode falar enquanto eu vou para onde aqui. Eu vou para um outro espaço. Será que por aqui melhorou?
Estabilizou.
Você consegue ouvir?
Sim, estabilizou.
Então, tá certo. Então, olha só, pela minha experiência, né, eu aqui no Brasil, eu acabo me identificando com um certo otimismo, sabe? Por conta de que aqui no Brasil foi criada em 2008 uma lei, que é a Lei 11.645 de 2008, que estabelece a obrigatoriedade do ensino de história e cultura afro-brasileira e indígena nas escolas, né? Então, obviamente que nós sempre queremos que esses processos de diálogos e de respeito aos nossos povos e aos nossos saberes e às nossas línguas e tradições, né, queremos sempre que esse respeito aconteça de maneira mais acelerada. Mas eu tenho acompanhado que tanto nas escolas quanto nos centros de cultura, nas instituições educativas de maneira geral, sabe, é um diálogo que está startado, que está iniciado. Sabe, as escolas vêm fazendo essa conversa, sabe, as formações de professores, elas têm acontecido, né, sempre com essa pegada, né, de trazer para dentro do debate, para dentro da escola, para dentro das instituições, né, a temática indígena. Aqui no Brasil, né, nós temos o Museu de Arte de São Paulo, né, o MASP, que é um dos maiores museus da América Latina, e nós estamos conseguindo quebrar ali, sabe, uma dureza colonizadora e levar para dentro do museu esse debate, sabe? Então, assim, eu sou otimista de achar que timidamente, ainda que timidamente, nós estamos conseguindo romper com uma barreira de muita violência e brutalidade contra os nossos povos e trazer o debate, sabe? Porque a sociedade precisa saber quem somos nós. A sociedade precisa saber que nós não estamos no passado, nós somos presente e que nós formamos uma diversidade de língua, de povos muito grande e podemos colaborar de maneira efetiva com a reconstrução de tudo que foi destruído em nome do progresso. Eu sou otimista, sabe? Sou otimista. É isso.
Obrigada, Edson. Thank you, Edson, so much for your optimism. Gracias, Edson, por tu otimismo con la situación. I'm not sure if everyone got the right translation, but it's beautiful to see that in Brazil we have public policies in place that it's including indigenous and Black culture and history in the Brazilian education system. La cultura y la cultura de los pueblos negros y indígenas está incluida en las políticas públicas de educación en Brasil. Esta es una cosa muy preciosa. Esto es porque Edson es optimista ahora. Sudhir, do you want to share how is the audience reception of the tribal community art and design?
It's quite a complex subject, but given Edson's optimism as to what is happening in Brazil, on the contrary, I really find it disappointing the way it is happening in India. one of the main important points that I had mentioned in my presentation right in the beginning was recognition, appreciation, and understanding of what tribal communities are. Their relation with land that helps them develop a certain unique culture, and the manifestation of that culture, which I agree is a dynamic form, the way it manifests itself through art, the way we understand in the modern society, uh, there is hardly any room for it. All the art, music, and aspects of culture that we see celebrated today in contemporary India is from a very panoptic gaze. It is more of an exotic component rather than understanding what each of these expressions mean. And I was connected from my community culture because I had to go out to receive education. And many more people like me in my community, we realize that the aspect of the sacredness of these expressions is something that the larger mainstream does not understand. And it is even more appalling that educational systems do not recognize and understand that. Contrary to what Edson said, that there are policies that are being developed in Brazil that includes people in the process. We do not find that inclusion in India. Very complex reasons. But just to give you numbers, design education in India is probably 50 years old. Out of these 50 years, as the latest numbers from the industry say, we've had 7,000 designers. Out of those 7,000 designers, due to the process of how tribal community members get represented, which ideally doesn't, out of 7,000, 8% would mean close to around 700 people in 50 years in a very ideal scenario. 700 representation in design industry for the past 50 years. How will people express themselves?
That is not
There
nearly
are
enough.
art galleries, there is art galleries, there are buyers, but what they're propagating, what the market propagates, is a stereotypical understanding of the commoditized version of each of these tribal communities. I think there needs to be greater representation, greater connect with people from the communities. I might even be surprised that people coming from institutions, government or non-government, private, corporate, they would not be even able to name the 705 communities that are listed in officially by the government, leave alone recognize the people in their geographical regions, which might be the provinces. And I think that is the depth. Until unless people do not recognize each community for what it brings to the table, recognizing various forms of what they can bring to the table is very challenging indeed.
We have a question for you, Sudhir, but before I want to list to hear Amelia and Manari about their experiences with audience. Amelia, would you like to go?
Sure. Thank you so much for that question. I think indigenous creatives in North America have been seeing a greater amount of agency when it comes to telling our own stories. I think up until this point, in the last maybe 5 years, we have had a renaissance of media that is written by Indigenous people, starring Indigenous people with Indigenous crews, telling unique and authentic Indigenous stories. Wonderful examples would be the film I mentioned, Fancy Dance, Sugarcane, the documentary that talked about Indigenous boarding schools, as well as television shows like Reservation Dogs that show our authentic communities, our humor, and the way in which we can frame our stories of resilience and hope and imaginations. Whereas in the past, other people have told our stories for us and left out the true vibrance and specificity of our tribal indigenous wisdom. And it's been a really wonderful thing to witness, to be a part of, to contribute to, as well as to support and center. And I hope it continues. I know we've supported one another for many years to allow this new generation to have a moment to center their own lived experiences and those of their ancestors within their storytelling. For myself, those stories also move into space of thinking about how it can influence policy decisions. I believe that Indigenous people have a unique point of view when it comes to global migration, to issues like water rights and housing loss, and as well as homelessness. And so I hope to encourage many to support and to center Indigenous voices within the climate initiatives that you bring forward, and to hope that policymakers will also include diverse people from diverse backgrounds, also that meaning different industries. I think understanding that artists and artisans, people who are of crafts, storytellers, all have an important point of view on the way in which some of these global problems will unfold within their communities. So I encourage people to also bring in interdisciplinary perspectives to those global problems. Thank you so much for the question.
Thank you, Amelia. It is beautiful to see this arts renaissance here in the North. Manari, me gustaría de preguntarte, tú has compartido con nosotros sobre cómo tu pueblo recibe visitantes para compartir el conocimiento Sapará. ¿Cómo es la reacción de estos visitantes cuando están en contacto con tu pueblo y con tu conocimiento?
A ver, nosotros recibimos estas personas en la selva. Primero tenemos que aplicar una medicina que se llama jauneca para conectar a ellos con la selva, porque también tenemos que quitar el olor de ciudad y después conectamos con energía de la familia, de toda la familia que vivimos en la selva, y después comenzamos a enseñar cómo recordar el sueño. Y ellos duermen, sueñan y comienzan a contar sus sueños. Y la forma como sueñan, sus sueños son en la ciudad, con los carros, con su formación, su educación, su vida. Y de acuerdo a eso, nosotros sabemos exactamente esa persona cómo está su pensamiento y conectamos con la sabiduría de la selva. Pero también hacemos desde el mundo de la selva, desde el mundo del maquijauno, del mundo de los sueños. Y ahí comenzamos a trabajar su pensamiento para que pueda ver a la vida como miran los árboles, como mira el agua, como mira el aire, la vida. Entonces, y también conectamos con algunos animales y hacen su propia experiencia. Nosotros simplemente guiamos como cultura zápara y en esa experiencia ellos encuentran su respuesta o su necesidad que tenían algún negocio en su vida que no estaba yendo bien, encuentran esa respuesta y comienzan a trabajar esa preocupación. Y también nosotros hemos recibido algunas comunidades científicas que tienen satélites en el universo y con ellos hemos trabajado mucho para entender toda la teoría que se ha propuesto desde comunidad científica. ¿Eso es verdad o no es verdad? Pero esa sabiduría hemos conectado con las plantas y hemos navegado al universo para verificar eso conjuntamente con ellos. Y hay muchas cosas que sí son reales, hay otras cosas que como humanos hemos inventado. Entonces, esas cosas hemos, con ellos conjuntamente, hemos detectado y ahí ellos replantean sus conceptos, sus pensamientos sobre la vida. Entonces, para nosotros ha sido una experiencia muy especial. A través de esta experiencia hemos visto también que hay muchos planetas alrededor de nosotros, pero siempre conectando con sabiduría de la selva y ahí aprendemos conjuntamente, tanto como la comunidad científica y nosotros. y también los demás personas que han visitado la selva, como doctores, como psicólogos, y con ellos hemos hecho una experiencia de que cómo un árbol vive, cómo maneja sus dimensiones de la vida, y también hemos comparado con la vida de los humanos, cuántas dimensiones manejamos y cómo está nuestra psicología y conectando con una planta, entendiendo esa planta, hemos trabajado nuestra psicología. Y así hemos cambiado muchas sabidurías, tanto como de nosotros, también con de la gente de afuera. Entonces, para nosotros trabajar de esta forma, y ha sido una experiencia muy especial porque la sabiduría indígena siempre ha sido escondido, pero ahora nosotros como Mundo Zapara hemos abierto para comenzar a enseñar a las personas que no son indígenas. Y así vamos a aprender mutuamente para tener un nuevo futuro del mundo. Gracias.
Qué preciosa experiencia. Muchas gracias. Well, we have a question in our Keynote. Oh, let me change my language to English. Oh, it's English. Okay. So we have two questions. So one question is for Sudhir. The question is like, there's a lot of conversation about indigenous knowledge in India recently as a process of decolonization, but a lot of that seems to move towards a Hindu-focused conversation like Vedic knowledge or the epic texts. What has been your experience, Sudhir, in establishing a conversation by and of indigenous people? And if you see a conflict of interest in the state's understanding of indigenous knowledge and of your communities?
Thank you for that question. I think it is a very important one today, because when we say indigenous knowledge, I think the word itself very clearly associates that a particular form of knowledge to the land. And we as tribal communities, our association with land and whatever wisdom that has come through generations of our ancestors is very part of the community, number one. Number two, languages. Languages is something that we often ignore and understand the importance of it. In my very oversimplified take, if I see 0 and 1 as the language of computation today, languages from the community is something that I see very key to understanding indigenous knowledge systems of each of these tribal communities. Unfortunately, historically, tribal languages have not been given its due place. Neither has an effort been made to help these communities conserve and preserve their knowledge, their language in a formal system. I think I will just use that as one indicator. There are many more indicators. Just that one particular indicator of how our communities are losing our own languages and hence our knowledge systems. So first was the aspect of land, our connection of land, not recognized, not understood, not valued. Second, the importance of language to these communities, not much of focus is given to that. So I think today, when the international community talks about indigenous knowledge, it sounds fine, but I think in India that does not translate to what and how sensitively it needs to be understood and recognized. For someone to talk about indigenous knowledge system, you have to have representation from these communities. You have to work with them. Where in the ecosystem, in the educational institutions, in the communities, is any tribal language being used as a form of medium of instruction, simply to retain and maintain that indigenous knowledge system? And are people from the communities trained enough to articulate and share and guide the next generation? There is no infrastructure existing. And this is why I'm glad that young people are joining more and more and trying to see how they can do things for the benefit of their own community to conserve and preserve the indigenous knowledge systems that has made their communities what they are today. And this is where I think Tribal Design Forum is playing a key role.
Thank you so much for your insight and your perspective, Sudhir. We have another question that is for Manari, and I'm going to switch my language to Spanish here. Manari, tenemos una pregunta para ti de nuestro público. La pregunta es, dado que la cosmovisión Zapara está profundamente conectada con la salud de la tierra y las interacciones diarias con los espíritus de la selva a través de los sueños, ¿cómo la práctica del intercambio de sueños molda la visión de futuro de tu comunidad?
Para nosotros, para Mundo Zapara, nuestro futuro ya estamos viviendo ese futuro en la selva, porque nuestro futuro era mantener el bosque en vivo, igual que nosotros, para entender hacia dónde va la historia de la humanidad, no solo de Mundo Zapara, sino de toda la humanidad. Ese futuro ya lo tenemos. Lo que sí estamos viendo es que hay muchos cambios que alrededor de la Tierra está pasando. Está apareciendo un nuevo sueño. En ese nuevo sueño está llegando una nueva sabiduría. Y esa nueva sabiduría es lo que en general, globalmente hablando, los humanos estamos batallando porque no podemos canalizar bien en nuestros pensamientos, porque no hay una ciencia que nos ayude a canalizar bien esas sabidurías. Entonces nosotros estamos usando la tecnología del mundo del Maquijauno para canalizar bien en nuestros pensamientos, que entre bien, tanto como en los humanos y también de las plantas, de los animales y de otros seres que viven en la tierra. Entonces, eso es lo que estamos haciendo. En general, lo que hemos aprendido nosotros en nuestra experiencia es que cada acción, cada actividad que hagamos el humano, así hablando globalmente de muchas culturas, y esas acciones son acciones de experimentar la vida nomás. Pero más adelante, con toda esa experiencia, es lo que vamos a marcar un futuro, no solo una cultura, sino todas las culturas que vivimos en el mundo, todos los humanos que vivimos en el mundo, vamos a definir, asegurar nuestra vida en esta tierra. Entonces, por eso es muy importante, muchas culturas en el mundo, y indígenas, no indígenas, están haciendo ceremonias con plantas medicinales. Entonces, esas ceremonias lo que representa es aprender a canalizar estas sabidurías que está llegando desde el universo y también desde la tierra. Entonces, para nosotros es muy importante, para las universidades, para las personas que trabajan en tema de educación, analizar eso profundamente y entender, pero siempre usando la tecnología del mundo de los sueños, porque es algo invisible, no se puede ver eso desde esta realidad. Pero desde el mundo de espíritu podemos entender eso. Entonces, la única forma de hacer es aplicando el mundo de Maquijauno. Y con eso es lo que nosotros estamos viendo, el futuro de la selva, el futuro de nosotros y el futuro de todo planeta Tierra. Gracias.
Gracias. We have another question in our chat. And that's going to be our last question because we have only around 10 minutes to wrap up our panel today. So the question is for anyone who wants to answer this question. Indigenous women have always been leading the future for land, culture, and justice. We have often seen them take the front seat. How does making space for their voices change the game? What can we learn from Indigenous communities with respect to what we understand as feminists in the self-declared modern and contemporary world? I'm going to translate that to Portuguese and Spanish too, so give me a minute. Las mujeres indígenas siempre han estado a la frente de la lucha por tierra, cultura y justicia. La pregunta es cómo se están haciendo, cómo hacer, garantizar espacio para las mujeres indígenas cambia el futuro y cambia la situación que vivimos. Y lo que podemos aprender con las comunidades indígenas, sobre cómo las comunidades indígenas ven la condición de la mujer y el feminismo. Em português agora. As mulheres indígenas sempre estiveram à frente da luta pela terra, por cultura e por justiça. Nós com frequência vemos as mulheres indígenas à frente do movimento, e a pergunta é como garantir espaço para as mulheres indígenas terem transformado a luta indígena, e o que a gente pode aprender das comunidades indígenas a respeito de feminismo e da condição da mulher. So, not sure who wants to start answering this question or who wants to answer this question for us. Está abierto para quien quiser compartir su visión sobre esto.
I think
Sudhir, go on.
I think I'm pretty ill-equipped to answer this question from a contemporary feminist perspective. However, what I would like to perhaps point out again, which is also an extension of our understanding of what indigenous knowledge systems to each of the communities mean. I think in India, if you look around, there are communities that are matriarchal, that are matrilineal, and these tribal communities have over time managed their society very well. So if we're looking at game-changing aspects, we just have to look at how these communities have been functioning and how a certain order has been maintained, which is invaluable to the community as to how it has survived for so long. I think I'll just stop at that.
Thank you, Sudhir. Manari?
A mí me gustaría responder lo que tú estás preguntando. Nosotros hemos visto desde la selva, hemos visto desde el mundo de Maquijauno, las mujeres en otra dimensión, las mujeres han hecho una nueva arquitectura de la vida, diseñaron una nueva arquitectura de la vida. Y ese diseño es lo que ahora comienza a materializar en este mundo. Y lo que las mujeres tienen una responsabilidad de diseñar, no como ellos tienen una energía de más allá de lo que ellas sienten, hay una delicadeza de ser una persona. Entonces, con esa fuerza, ellas han diseñado una nueva visión de la vida. Entonces, ese diseño ya está materializando en el mundo. Hay arquitecturas que están diseñando, por ejemplo, casas que se integren con la naturaleza y la forma de alimentar. Nosotros hemos visto, muchas personas están transformando en su forma de alimentar y también hemos visto también en vez de usar otras tecnologías, están usando la misma, ¿cómo es? Para generar electricidad, están usando las mismas plantas. Muchas personas piensan que eso es un genio está descubriendo esas energías. No es así. Para nosotros, ese diseño hicieron las mujeres en el mundo de Maquijauno. Entonces, para el mundo Zapara, las mujeres, ahora es el tiempo de mujeres, porque ellos diseñaron, entonces ellos tienen que gobernar al mundo y entender hacia dónde hay que llevar esta historia, porque los hombres ya hemos fracasado. Entonces, para nosotros, con la conversación que hemos tenido en la selva, con los mayores que están en este plano y con los mayores que están en otra dimensión, ellos lo que han dicho es que ahora es el momento de las mujeres. Entonces hay que dar mucho espacio a las mujeres para que puedan traer esa sabiduría que diseñaron para este mundo.
Gracias, muchas gracias, Manari. Not sure if Amelia or Edson want to jump in this question. Eu não tenho certeza se o Edson ou a Amália vão querer contribuir com essa questão.
Olha, eu quero falar rapidamente assim, sabe, que é, com todo respeito, sabe, não é de forma alguma sendo desrespeitoso, mas era importante ter um fórum para pautar nessa coisa assim, porque eu fico meio intimidado de falar, né, sobre as mulheres, né? Então tinha que ser as mulheres pelas mulheres, mas de todo modo, eu não tenho nenhuma dúvida, sabe, de que as mulheres estão conquistando, as mulheres indígenas particularmente, estão conquistando espaços significativos, né? Elas efetivamente são as guardiãs, né? Elas cuidam da terra, né? Elas cuidam enfim, dos códigos culturais, né? São guardiãs dos códigos culturais dos nossos povos. São as guerreiras que estão na linha de frente, né? No enfrentamento do dia a dia, seja dentro de casa, seja lá em outros espaços. Então, assim, eu considero que o mundo tem que mudar, sabe, para que haja uma sensibilidade maior das pessoas em relação às outras formas de vida, sabe, em relação à vida humana e não humana. E a sensibilidade das mulheres é, por excelência, assim, a grande mestra, sabe, a grande professora, a grande educadora. Então, as mulheres, elas, queiramos ou não, estão conquistando espaços. Aqui no Brasil, por exemplo, os povos indígenas têm conquistado espaços institucionais de governo, e as mulheres estão na linha de frente de quase todos os cargos ou funções ocupadas, né? Então, por exemplo, nós temos uma ministra, né, o Ministério dos Povos Indígenas no Brasil, né, que é ocupado, a pasta ocupada por uma mulher. Temos a Fundação Nacional do Índio, né, e uma mudança que estamos fazendo dentro da instituição a partir de uma mulher, que é a Joênia Wapichana, né? E aí nós vamos observando assim que as mulheres paulatinamente vão conquistando espaços, por exemplo, de lideranças dentro das comunidades cacicas, né? As mulheres que agora também assumem o papel de pajé, de curandeiras, né? Enfim, de tantas atividades fundamentais, tanto dentro da nossa comunidade, quanto nos espaços institucionais, nas cidades. Então, não tem reversão, é um processo que não tem reversão, sabe? As mulheres estão ocupando esses espaços, infelizmente, né, os povos indígenas aprenderam de maneira muito violenta a serem violentos no sentido de constituir em muitos lugares espaços e organizações políticas paternalistas, mas nós, movimento indígena, temos conversado muito sobre isso e temos absoluta tranquilidade para compreendermos que é necessário romper, né, com todos esses ranços patriarcalistas e que as mulheres efetivamente ocupem os espaços que elas sempre deviam estar ocupando e que estão ocupando de um modo ou de outro, né? Então é isso, eu penso que as mulheres têm que protagonizar esses espaços, inclusive de fala. Eu estou aqui falando, mas nem me sinto autorizado para falar pelas mulheres, mas como tem aqui essa brecha para dizer, né, eu falo isso e digo que as mulheres têm que ocupar, né, inclusive esses espaços de falas em encontros, congressos e enfim, é isso.
Obrigada, Edson. I'm not an indigenous woman in Brazil, but I am a Brazilian woman, and I can say that it's truly beautiful to see indigenous women in Brazil like spearheading the movement and taking like the front seat in leading public policies with our Minister of Minister of Indigenous Affairs and the Agency of Indigenous Affairs being led by women. Amelia, I think we should listen to you for a bit.
I'll share a story. I often organize events, as many of you here and as the moderators and leaders are organizing this event so beautifully. And I had someone from another hackathon come to me and say, at your hackathon, we have 50% or more women that participate, they speak, it's kind of making the rest of us look bad because it looks so effortless that so many women are leading and are participating. And people have even said, how come our group is only men? You're making us look bad. Like, I think you should try to reorganize the way you do things, or tell people how you do it. And I said, I'm happy to tell people how I do it. Let me ask you one question, which is very basic, which is, do you give a microphone at your event to a woman? And I don't mean a metaphorical microphone or a theoretical microphone. I mean the actual microphone. Is a woman holding one throughout the entire event? And they said, no, no. And I said, well, that is a surefire way of making sure that you have participation. Who do you give the microphone to? And they said, well, the organizers. And I said, and why don't you have a woman who is an organizer with you? Because if you had an organizer with you, she would also be holding the microphone. So all of these decisions come from sort of a top-down design level informational system. If we don't have women who are organizing, they don't have the microphone. If they're not leading the conversation, they don't have the microphone. If they're not invited to participate, they're not holding the microphone. And then many people can speak about how women should be here or how women could be here or the wonderful things women will say. But if they're not given the microphone or given that time or given that space, then there isn't a way for them to participate. And as many of you have noted within your discussions, when you do give women the microphone and you do invite them in, they are able to be leaders. They have vital information to share. And so, to fully respect the way in which and the spirit in which the question was asked, I think that is a wonderful way to organize, is just to look at quite literally who is given a microphone. And if those people are only leaders, then why aren't those leaders also women? And I think that is a great way of thinking about organizing within a space and presentation within community. Thank you so much for the question.
Thank you so much. That was a beautiful example, Amelia. Sudhir, you have a last word? We are wrapping up. We're at the end of our time.
Just one line. Since we are talking about women and their contributions and how they can add something new, a new dimension, I just wanted to let you know that more than 70% of the people in the Tribal Design Forum community are ladies, and the people who drive and has made what Tribal Design Forum is today are a group of young ladies, which I'll be doing great disservice if I do not acknowledge and let the world know about this. So that's what ladies can do. And to finally say, currently, the President of India is a lady from the Indigenous community, so that all of us know where and how the power structures work and how they can possibly contribute to the society. Thank you.
That is beautiful. Thank you so much, Sudhir. Well, I'm going to wrap up because we are at the end of our time. We were precisely 1 hour and a half. This is beautiful. And I'm going to do my finishing words in all of the 3 languages for all of you. So it is an honor to be here, invited in this space to listen of the wisdom of the Seneca Cayuga Nation, the Pueblo Sapara, Munda community, and Povo Kayapó Mebengocré. A future that respects and open more and more space for Indigenous knowledge, arts, culture, and narratives will be a better future for all of us. I also want to invite everyone who is listening to us to keep engaged today and tomorrow in the events. We have events on all of the 4 countries presented here. And if you get into this conversation here in the Zoom transmission, I'm sure you know how to find the other events that are happening in your city. Es un honor, un gran honor de oír la experiencia y la sabiduría del pueblo Seneca Cayuga, el pueblo Sapara, la comunidad Munda, el pueblo Kayapó Mebengocré. Un futuro que respecta y está abierto para más y más conocimiento, cultura y arte indígena es un futuro que es mejor para todos nosotros y nosotras. Yo invito a todos y todas que están nos asistiendo que permanezcan conectados con WITH Festival y con todas las actividades que están aconteciendo en las 4 ciudades que estão involucradas neste bonito festival. Eu agradeço muito de ter sido convidada a estar nesse espaço e a ouvir a sabedoria da nação Sêneca Cayuga, do povo Sapara, da comunidade Munda e do povo Kayapó Mebengocré. Um futuro que respeita e que está aberto a mais e mais conhecimento, arte e cultura indígena, é um futuro que será melhor para todos nós. E eu quero convidar todos que estão nos assistindo a continuar engajados nas atividades do With Festival nas suas cidades. Se vocês conseguiram nos encontrar aqui no YouTube, eu tenho certeza que conseguem ver o restante da programação perto de vocês. Muito obrigada e tenham um excelente dia.
Boa tarde também.
And we were talking about ladies not being given a microphone. Well done, Giselle.
Are we still transmitting?
I'm just going to close the session. Thank you so much. It was fantastic. I'll stop the streaming now. And of course, you can stay and we can have a conversation. Otherwise, you're, of course, you can leave the chat room right now. And thank you so much, everybody, for your time.
Thank you so much, Sohini, for making all of this happening.